Before I start, I wanted to give a warning for sensory. This talks about police brutality and racism. So it's a sore subject. This is a real sign that existed on Highway 461 in the late 60s and 70s, along with a sign that read, "If you can read, you better run. If you can't read, you better run away." In Colorado, we had signs that read, "Mexicans not allowed after dark." And in Connecticut, they had signs that said, "Whites only after dark." But even though these signs have been erased from the highway, the theory and the belief system is still established in these communities. Who here has heard of a sundown town? It's more than I thought. A sundown town is a neighborhood, town, or community in which it is wholly white on purpose to systematically keep out minority citizens. This can range from not allowing sale of houses, rental discrimination, overlooking hate crimes such as murder, threatening of one's lives, employment, all kinds of stuff. It's not written in law that they can't be there, but they're going to do everything in their power to keep their communities white. According to Lowen's rating base, at least 60 of Kentucky's 782 towns are still considered sundown towns. And right now, across 31 states, there's still an estimated 150 towns that are labeled as sundown towns. Now you have, in 2017, the NAACP issued a warning for travelers across all of Missouri. And in 2020, a group called Defund San Antonio Police Coalition issued a travel warning for the city of San Antonio. But why? Why are they issuing these travel warnings? This is 2022, right? Well, in Missouri, they created a Senate bill called number 43, which changes it to where if you are suing for discrimination, you have to prove that your contributing characteristics were a motivating factor. Versus before, you just had to prove that it was a contributing factor. And in 2020, a jury overheld a trial in which 3 white men were accused of killing a 25-year-old black man who was just simply jogging through a suburban neighborhood in southern Georgia. Now, that's rare, actually. A lot of these crimes won't go to trial. They'll simply be overlooked. And that's the issue. And I wanted you to understand why I'm going to transition into police brutality when it comes to this. Because I need you to understand that policing does not stand alone. And apart from how we charge people with crimes and how we convict them. By this I mean that these systems in place in these towns and communities and areas are keeping the minority citizens from being able to establish themselves and their rights in these areas. The judges, the prisons, the police departments, they are all set aside against them. There are areas that I've talked about, the courts, the prisons, and the police, which have a system called evidence-free zones. And in this, it means that you can make decisions strictly based on common sense and intuition. But as you can guess, this leads to a lot of unfair decisions. Now, there's an argument that argues that we should move towards an evidence-based system or model, which actually would define why you're being pulled over, why you're being tried, what the accusations are upon being pulled over, and not only how it benefits the community. There are 6 things that I found upon my research that would help to eliminate police brutality. They are eliminating language in police union contracts that limit officer accountability. As we've seen through the past years, and even especially in recent times with social media, a lot of the police officers that have faced these things are not being held accountable to the correct standards that a normal citizen would. And this is because of the police unions. The second thing involves to track complaints about officers using excessive force. Now, when you look at this, I don't just talk about in the police department. I want it public. So imagine you are even a police officer and you get to look up who your new partner is and you see a history that they've used excessive force. Now look at the aspect of you are a citizen and someone used excessive force on you. You now have an easier way of showing that they had a history of force. It would be easier to prove your lawsuit. Another one is to scale up non-medical organizations to respond to emergencies such as mental illness. Imagine a schizophrenic person having a psychotic break. What is the police going to do with that person? They have no crisis management training, nor should they have to. There are organizations in place that should be able to handle these calls and take them directly to the mental institute to get help, instead of the police department using force and then taking them to the prisons and then being escorted to the mental institutes. Then we have encouraging federal oversight, demilitarization, not defunding the police. I actually don't think we should defund the police. If anything, like any career, it should be funded more, but the funding should be centralized into other aspects. But we need to demilitarize the police, which I'll touch on in just a second. And then the last one is more restrictive laws governing use of force. This company's de-escalation trainings and not just force. There are so many other ways other than excessive force to get a non-compliant person to respond. And I know I'm over time, but I feel like this is really important and I'm willing to take that deduction to go over this thoroughly. So I want to go back to demilitarizing the police. Right now, there is a Pentagon program called 1033, which simply serves to give a surplus of military-grade equipment to police departments and sheriff offices. So far, that program has accumulated $7.4 billion in military-grade equipment to police departments for only the cost of shipping. Why? Why are military-grade equipment being put in the hands of police? Why isn't the military coming and stepping in during those aspects? Just yesterday, Representative Johnson from Georgia reintroduced the bipartisan bill to demilitarize police, and it's called Stop Militarizing Law Enforcement Act of 2021. This would take away and remove Program 1033, and there's a lot of other programs and bills set to help demilitarize police. But no one knows about it. Our reps don't know what we want, and there's so much outcry right now that there's so many of what should we do. So I wanted to show you guys one website, 2 websites, but one website in general that I really came across that can actually do a difference. And I don't mean just donating. I mean the housing issue we talked about, the healthcare issue we've talked about. This doesn't just go towards minorities discrimination. This website is called issuevoter.org. Because I feel the main problem with all of our society issues is the fact that we don't know where to go, what to do, and what to vote for. It's so easy for everyone to say that, get out and vote. Oh, who you vote for matters. How do you know? What if you're young, 18, you just learned how to vote, right? You just got the permission, but you don't know what your representative does, nor do you have the time. You're trying to face college, life, figure out your own things. Issuevoter.org assigns you, if you want, areas, and you can specifically get feedback on the bills being addressed in Congress, what your representative is addressing, and what they vote for. So for instance, if your representative is Johnson in Georgia, and some reason he votes against what he said he was going to vote for, you now know that you have a politician who is not living up to the word of the people. You are now more easily able to follow what you're passionate about. Another website, if you want more things to specifically do with social injustice and those bills being handled, is called campaignzero.org. This one is more traditional in the sense that you can donate. But in this area, it specifically handles each state and the bills, legislations, and acts to not only with discrimination, but it deals LGBTQ+ communities, it deals minorities, ethnic backgrounds such as poverty, stricken areas, and deals with all of that. So these are two main websites that you can go to just see what's going on. So I implore you to go look at these areas, especially this website. It's totally free. It takes literally 60 seconds to put your information in, and then you'll get emails about what your rep is doing, why it matters. And then you don't even have to go do anything other than that. Once you do that, you can just hit I support. And it sends your feedback directly to your representative so that they know what you support. This, because obviously on the Congress level, we have no say. But if we tell our reps what we want, then they can vote for what we want, and then it truly becomes a society where the people run the government and not the government running the people. That's all I have. I hope that I can provide you with some insight on what's going on in this world and what to do about it.